lower level. I'll tell you a short story. A 10-year-old daughter went with her mother to a satsang, where the speaker, spiritual, philosophical speaker, rallied his arguments to say there is no free will, and in that particular context, he said everything is decided by God. They came home. Next morning, the daughter was not getting up to go to school. The mother was saying, "Beti, get up." The daughter said, "Amma, did you not hear yesterday? If God wants me to go to school today, I will anyhow go." Please don't come between God and me. And the other daughter. So she went by theoretically that idea, everything is decided by God. And the professor gives some other explanation in the language of modern science. No free will, he says. But the mother also very smart. Mother smiled and kept quiet. Later on, the Rajkumari got down at about 8 a.m. from upstairs room. "Amma, where is my breakfast? What have you made for breakfast?" Amma said, "I dropped the idea of making him breakfast. Because if everything is predetermined, God has decided. God wants you to get breakfast. Breakfast will come from the roof. Breakfast will spring out from the refrigerator." Then the daughter, I believe, folded her hands and said, "Amma, don't play with me. I'm so hungry. Give me something." And of course, the mother was mother after all. She had prepared. So this is predetermined, I will get breakfast anyhow. If it's predetermined, somehow I'll find myself in school by the proper hour, good or run. So you and I have to believe in free will in that sense. We must do our bit. I'm sure Krishna also has, I don't remember, he has addressed some of these issues. And very beautifully, finally, I think emphasizes being aware and all that.
Morning, sir. So, something on the lighter note first. We friends also discuss why do we come here year after year. So we say that it's that wholesome food, natural, beautiful ambience, a laugh or two with friends, and thank you very much for giving us few moments of that laughter also. So maybe it is good enough reason for you to be here also.
Yes, it's surely a part of the reasons. It's a beautiful place. In fact, I openly say of all the 6 schools in KFI schools, I love to come here. This location, is amazing. Yeah.
And sir, there is a place for this also for the organizers. Organizers here, they have done a very good job.
Sure.
So, to the question, sir, there was a point in your speech in which you said, hold on. Something negative or positive is coming as an identity, and you say, hold on. But later on it turned into ask some questions or an explanation from you. I mean, if that is all, then to me it appears that that circle will not ever get eliminated, because some questions will always keep coming and explanations will also will be there. So my question is that, is there something more substantial in that hold on that will work? Although we may not be ready, but if you could throw some light on that, that's something substantial that will say hold on.
Thank you for asking that. I have a weakness for explaining more than required. So, in a manner of saying, I could have and perhaps should have stopped at hold on and inquire, full stop. Inquire in your own way. The moment you give an example, you are narrowing down the scope of inquiry. Inquiry can take place in 100 ways. Questions can be of 100 kinds. Moment a speaker gives an example, then out of those 100, he is narrowing down to one particular one. Suppose I give the scenario, somebody wants to go to a movie one evening instead of studying or something. I say to that city boy, hold on, don't go to movie. Instead, go to the library nearby. Instead, go to this place, 2 or 3. But actually there are 100 possibilities, right? So now coming to a little more light on hold on. The hold on there is just an appeal not to continue with the negative memories. Because memories have a way of bringing more and more associated memories, right? I remember something that happened in 2014, let's say a very sad memory. Then it brings in again what happened in 2010 in support of this. So hold on means don't go down the slope of more and more associated and similar memories. Halt. And then do what? Then question the very basis of thing. Because that's a tendency. Don't go further, don't slip further down on the slope. Too many memories of the same kind can crush me. Right? So I should not get crushed by a larger mass of negative memories. Enough is enough. I stop. And then I stand apart and ask a different kind of question. The negative memory says, I was such a selfish person, I told a lie to my own wife. Not once, Then, hold on, yes, it is true. To your wife who trusts you so much, you told a lie. Hold on. Are there things, good things that you did, sacrifices you did for your wife? Ask yourself. Then the present memories come. Yeah, on some occasions I went the extra mile for her and she knows, she admits it. Right? So that way, hold on is stop from going in one direction and open up other directions. In the several kinds of memories rising, and hopefully not in excessive number, some insight can dawn. That's what I get.
What?
You said about the ego, and
We can't hear you.
because we have come from some institution.
See, everybody will hear if you use the mic.
Yeah.
I am able to hear you without mic also.
I have a low voice. Yeah. So when you said about ego, you said that in your speech you said about you come from certain institution and we all have that baggage and
Yeah.
we have in society we have a place and all that we've understood. But you also told the example of the small child who felt very odd when he was reprimanded in front of everybody. So I was just wondering if ego is something innate or born with, because a child has not gone through so many institutions yet. So that's my question.
Yes. The child, my view is a child may not express the ego with which it is born. The child may not express the ego for a year or two, etc. But from the moment the child is born, the ego is in its brain. Otherwise, children of the same mother would all be alike. Each child has brought its baggage. In Hindu theory, they call it previous life. We don't have to accept it. It could be hereditary. It could be through a biological process. But I have read a lot about these things. My view, in the light of all that, the view is a child is born right away at the time of birth with many likes and dislikes, many preferences, many inclinations, but they take time to express. Maybe something expresses even at the age of 8 months. You mothers would know better. I have never raised a child. So at a different age, in different ages, different things express, but they were there. So what they call nature versus nurture issue. Teachers can nurture certain things, but the child has in its nature certain things. So nature and nurture together shape the individual.
Hello. Yes, sir. You said about this hold on and inquiry and first hold on and then the inquiry.
Correct.
Can can be done in 100 ways. So I'm saying that inquiry can be done in 100 ways, but can the hold on or the stop be in 100 ways?
The hold on.
Just a stop.
Correct.
Just a stop. And then I think so that I see that if you really want to understand the truth, just stop and don't ask how, else you are disqualified.
Yeah. So in both matter of holding on and the matter of inquiring, there are many possible ways. Sometimes you and I hold by simply putting the foot down. I better stop here. Sometimes I see, out of seeing, that the way I am slipping down the negative memories is so unhealthy. There is some seeing element. Therefore I hold on. And many things, I am able to go more and more into that memory lane. I see somebody, a guest coming. I say, hold on, this man is going to ring the bell now. That also, an external stimulus also can make me stop the train of thought. I guess I am just offhand thinking of possibilities. So many ways to hold on and many ways to inquire.
Morning, sir. Thanks for the engaging session. You have used two words like self-knowledge and self-knowing. That prompted the question. So knowledge means what I feel is we have compiling information about something and pool of knowledge. So I want to have more clarity why you use the word knowing and the knowledge. Is it a continuous process or anything else? Thank you.
There are two reasons why the word self-knowing gained currency, got more importance. One reason is this business of self-knowledge has been presented in a lot of traditional literature as something frozen. Somebody got enlightened at the age of 32. Thereafter he roamed around like an enlightened soul because he had self-knowledge. As though self-knowledge is a certain frozen thing. Whereas that kind of idea, it is, first of all, it is not a thing. It's a certain understanding so subtle you can't lay your hands upon it. Therefore, this impression that something frozen has to be shaken, removed. Therefore, you use a separate word, self-knowing. The second reason to me it appears why we use the word self-knowing is the word knowing is like in present continuous, The dog is running, that is, is right now running. Or even past tense, dog was running. Something in motion. So that element is very much valid in the case of self-observation. Though it's not in time, yet it is paying attention to what is happening rather than some kind of post-mortem. Why did I lose temper yesterday afternoon after lunch? This is a post-mortem analysis. But the self-knowing is, as even I think about my losing temper yesterday after lunch, another part of me says, why are you hung up with that? It happened yesterday, it's over. You seem to have such a attachment to things, bygone things. And then another part says, this analysis also is to be noticed. So there are layers and layers. Right? Somebody throws a stone at me, misses me, goes there. One level is, hey, he threw a stone at me. Another is, I felt so scared. Another is, but I am noticing the fear in me. And another level could be, I am happy that I am able to notice the fear in me as the stone came towards me. And then another level says, I think I have grown philosophically. Otherwise I would not have watched so many things. So many layers. Stone, my fear, then knowing the fear, feeling happy about knowing the fear and feeling proud that I am aware of so many things happening within me. Wow, I am almost there now. etc. Then some doubt, then some self-censure, Atmaninda, all that happens. So that shows you and I have so much intelligence, you see. But alas, a lot of intelligence is going to make better machines these days. Very little is left for self-observation. That's what the booklet also says. Computers have become smarter. Last question.
Question to be asked. I hope we still have time. News reports about divisions in the family are not rare. Like you said, the families are by nature diverse, but those differences become divisions. And news reports, particularly about violent means within the family, where children actually go to a violent extent of eliminating their parents in terms of grief, because of their grief, are very disturbing personally. Extending that to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, if there are in that Kutumba of Vasudha elements which are bent upon violence and therefore eliminating the other parts of the family, how do you deal with that? I mean, you can deal with your own response to them, but how do you deal with this violence? Is my question.
That's extremely hard, but in the beginning of the talk, I quoted at the end he says that can change the world. See, there can be no revolution in values if there is no self-knowledge. This revolution in values alone will solve the problems of the world, he says. It may be a slow process, but this self-education as well as right education can set in motion a trend, and overnight nothing can be done. We can only hope. Let's say it is the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. We can only hope that along with the Putin or Zelensky, they are there, somebody would rise from this scenario. Somebody would rise who has a bit of self-knowledge, if not fully, a bit of, who sees that this is burning each other's houses, who sees more vividly than anybody else. For saying sake, everybody says, a war means people burn each other's houses. Saying sake, everybody says. But it is one thing to say what is politically correct and worthy of respect, but quite another to, feel the pangs, feel the pain in one's heart. So if somebody with a degree of self-knowledge and a pain in heart comes into the scenario, then truth will speak through him. That person can facilitate a new dialogue. That person can change the scene. These are very deep-rooted problems. Therefore, quick fix will not work. Somebody with a certain new energy, certain different kind of energy has to come into the scenario. Otherwise, it's a very hopeless scenario. Just like, in the Mahabharata, Pandavas asked for 5 villages. They said 5, not even 6. Gender bias, I tell you. Draupadi ke liye 1 gaon, but Pandavas asked for 5 villages. And look at that. Duryodhana said, I will not give you even one as much area as on top of a needle. So that's what makes it extremely hard. In both the cases, you have come out confused from me. I don't mind saying the speaker also is confused. Mind you, speaker also is struggling with all this along with you. Speaker and the audience are grappling with certain subtle truths of our real existence. What the books say is different. The books have a place, some place. We don't want to throw books into the river, but real life is so daunting, so challenging. Therefore, in certain places, you get a false idea. I understood. You celebrate. Don't be so sure. And over here, you may not get that comforting feeling. And no wonder Krishnaji himself avoided stories, jokes. I have a certain baggage. Even when I decide not to crack a joke, I end up cracking one or two jokes. I seek the forgiveness of the serious audience here. I have a certain baggage. Slowly I am, dealing with it. My Vedanta master, Swami Chinmayananda, was known for lots of humor. Only difference was he would crack a joke and he would not even smile. With me, when I think of a joke, I start smiling. And sometimes I crack a joke, nobody in the audience smiles or laughs. I take a minute or two to gather myself. So I will, confession, I will work on myself. So the falsity, this illustration, moment the man knows that this is a fake coin, nobody will take it. No jeweler will want to have a second look at it. Then will he hold it very tightly as he did before? Like that, our abhimana, I am a Brahmin, this person is low caste, I am this, I am that. It is all fake silver coin, not real silver coin. But how do we know it? By directly watching, by directly feeling it and inquiring. Many years after you passed from some well-known medical college, let us say, one morning you feel proud. After all, I am from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. This other guy is just from some college where we never heard of it before we came to know him, etc. Then question, wait a minute, 32 years have passed since I got my MBBS from AIMS in New Delhi and my friend got his MBBS from some small college in some corner of Andhra Pradesh. Okay. So, can I still feel on top of the earth on the fact of something that happened 32 years ago? In the last 32 years, lot of water has flown below all the bridges of the world, and this man who comes from not so much well-known college has gathered so much skills, his medical knowledge, his surgical skills or whatever, they are far superior, it's a fact. Whereas I may have a degree from a great college, but I unnecessarily entered into politics, I entered into many other things, I did not pay proper attention to my profession. I am a jack of all trades and master of none. This is the fact. So with one more sip of morning tea, if I can notice, factually, there is no basis for me to feel superior. And likewise in many situations, now this is also very important, you and I feel many times very low. There are times, some of us may enjoy certain social status, certain position, we may be regarded as enviable by people. But we know our own private story. In our quiet, private moments, sometimes we feel so low. I am fond of saying that's my personal belief. There is nobody on the earth who doesn't get suicidal thought at least twice or thrice in his life. Life is like that. Even those who are so accomplished, who are in limelight, who have earned trophies and this and that, they feel like committing suicide. Then also self-inquiry. As the thought says, you are worthless. You have actually done things that you should be ashamed of. There's a long commentary thought gives. Then we must question, hold on. Put all these thoughts together. Are all these together the whole of my life? You will easily find that all of that, to use an English idiom, all of them put together, 100 negative descriptions of ourselves put together is only a drop in the bucket. It's not much at all. But at that moment, those negative memories come up in large numbers and with great force, and we feel so down. This is not any way to whitewash our issues, but we must know that memories have their own mischievous ways. Pleasant memories make us feel big, unpleasant memories make us feel small. And identity of our own and identity of others is after all a summation of certain memories. On a particular day, at a particular hour, when we meet somebody, some memories about him rise in us. And the summation of those memories make us put a label on him. We judge him in a certain way. Same thing happens with ourselves too. Therefore, self-knowledge, which is through self-knowing, which is not at all through books or either listening to speeches or giving speeches, all of them terribly fall short of what is required. Self-knowledge is through self-knowing, it is through directly seeing what is going on and asking certain common sense questions. To ask a question to yourself when your mind says, I am worthless, to ask, am I? Why do I think I am worthless? To ask a question like that. You don't need a PhD from Harvard. You don't need to read a 1,000-page book on philosophy or self-knowledge or something in order to ask a question. What you need is common sense. What you need is certain openness. You and I can develop that ability to question, ability to observe without bias, observe without interference of any words at all. These are the challenges which actually requires basic human intelligence, not the intelligence as shaped and developed and packaged in some university. With due respect to all the universities, this basic intelligence doesn't require the university's training. The university can contribute in some way. In fact, I believe Krishnaji was traveling in Europe and he came across some people who were studying in a local university, philosophy, and there were 4 chapters on Krishnamurti. And Krishnaji had his own wit and humor, as all of us know. He had terrific wit. He looked at it and said, really? 4 chapters on me? I don't think I can pass in that subject. What a blend of humor as well as humility. Some mediocre person, many speakers like me would have felt very happy. Tomorrow an American university also will introduce 2 chapters on me. Same way if it spreads all over, then they have a good time going, etc. So immature. That will complicate my life more than ever before. Many a time it is so good to be unknown. That's another topic. Therefore, this intelligence which helps us ask questions without even a word sometimes, just to not accept the proposition made by memory. Memories are dancing in their own way. Waves of memories arise and then certain judgments, certain conclusions come up. And that is when we need to not get carried away by the wave, by the tide, and the point. And towards that, let me say one last point. I have personally found that it's not through just listening more to some talks or reading books or discussing intellectually. A certain holistic balance in life is required. Find out your own way. There cannot be a rigid and standard prescription. Do yoga in the morning, go for a walk in the evening. In this way, nobody can give you a timetable. Some may not do any yoga at all, but they might have figured out their own way to keep fit. Physical fitness, it is widely agreed Physical fitness is connected to mental alertness. Krishnaji himself said, I have been doing yoga for 40 years, but I did not allow that to become a habit, he said. The second part is very mind-blowing. 40 years every morning he did yoga, but he didn't allow it to become a habit. Meaning he did not allow it to become mechanical. Every time he did, let us say, Surya Namaskar or whatever, it was not out of a mechanical repetition of what he did the day before, but out of certain caring for the body. He was present. That's what we understand. So finally, you and I have to find out our own way, where we are true to ourselves. We don't live in contradiction. Not easy to actually do that. To say that is very easy. We live in contradictions, but to be aware of contradictions and to see that we take proper care of the body, we take proper care of the mind, we take proper care of relationships. No excess or no underdoing anywhere requires a lot of alertness. And then that kind of a certain orderly living makes inquiry also very effective. Otherwise, inquiry also can be another intellectual exercise. It can have its own problems. Gentle inquiry, and especially spontaneous, not planned, not premeditated, not packaged in some way, step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. But gentle self-observation, gentle self-inquiry. You and I have to figure out what it is. It's a lifelong exercise, it seems. That can lead to our identity, to an extent being undone, to an extent remaining without causing divisions. Self-knowledge and self-knowing thus can reduce the pressure of identity, the opinionated nature of personalities caused by identities. Then even though there may be diversity in this world, even in a family there will be diversity. Brothers and sisters have their own opinions. In spite of all that diversity, there can be a degree of harmony. That is what I would say. Thank you, and please feel free to make a comment or ask a question, etc.
First of all, thank you so much, sir. Sir, as you said, the speaker and audience is grappling with the same problem or questions.
Yes.
And the speaker don't have any identity,
No,
any superior or inferior identity.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. The speaker has his own superiority and inferiority at places. All of us are in the same boat.
And self-knowledge doesn't need, you said that for self-knowledge you don't need to listen to a speech. So I'm politely curious to know, why are you a speaker?
Yeah. So, why am I a speaker? In life, you and I are in positions, and we ourselves don't know why we are there. But we are there. Somebody is a doctor. He has been a doctor for 20 years. You ask him, why are you a doctor? He said it all began when I wanted to do engineering, but my father said go to medicine, I went to engineering. Likewise, to be both humorous and frank, somewhere in my life, I was excited by Vedanta. I ended up in an ashram. Then many things happened. Then I was not satisfied with all the Sanskrit works. So I studied a few other teachers. Then came Krishnamurti's literature, which I didn't understand for some 10 to 12 years. I heard him once in Chennai, 1981. Everything went above my head. wanted. First of all, I was not receptive, I was not listening. I was actually seeing how many people have come. Kind of place wasn't Vihar in Chennai. And I've always been late. I was very late and standing late behind. So he was very clear. His English was simple, but still. But somewhere much later, another 10 years, 12 years later, it started sinking. By then I had messed up my life also quite a lot. That's where Krishnamurti makes more sense. If everything is going well, why do you need Krishnamurti? In spite of your knowing 100 verses of Gita by heart, in spite of knowing so much Sanskrit, in spite of many other things, you still have certain conflict. Then okay, now I don't want to go very long on it. I am a speaker as a result of so many things. So it's not that I wrote to Sahyadri Center and I want to speak. Nor that it just happened. They have called somebody like me because of various factors. They perhaps don't know why they call me. Perhaps. I also don't know why I came. So that is life. You and I actually don't know why we are. But of course, that is not, that will be a little exaggeration. In a rough way, we have a feeling that I have something which audience would perhaps love to hear. I have something to share, and probably the good chances are people also will love it. And I also love to talk that way. So let's go ahead. Let's see what happens. Like that. So there's a tentativeness. Therefore, lastly, there are many people like me, speakers, who stop speaking also in life. Either go to Himalayas, or they just go to a small town and become maybe a geography teacher in the school there, etc. Many people quit the IT industry in which they were so passionate at one time, having made some money or whatever. Completely goodbye. Therefore, I am a speaker not out of total conviction and as a mission, etc. I ended up here because of various factors. I don't have much conflict about it. A little is there.
Good morning. Please accept my compliment that you are very honest with yourself as well as your audience, that you are in this team, not out of this team. So, and you are also as confused as we are. Thank you for that honesty. And the question is about self. As you said, that self is an illusion. For me, self is a fact. Because as I do see myself, there is.
When somebody praises, if we feel on top of the world, the self is rising. The self experiences a certain elation. In contrast, if somebody criticizes us, talks nastily about us, the self in us feels hurt. It goes down. And do we notice it right at that time? Or do we just react impulsively, mechanically, is the question. And in our interactions with people, which is generally through speech or through action, somebody says something, does something to us, we either respond verbally or we do something, we take action. No wonder in the booklet that has been distributed to all, I was going through the booklet this morning, there is so much valuable light, precious light, Krishnaji has thrown upon the place of self-knowledge. I just noted a couple of lines to share with you as part of my presentation. Without self-knowledge, there is no basis for thought and action. If you do not know yourself, there cannot be right thinking and right action. There can be no revolution in values if there is no self-knowledge. This revolution in values alone will solve the world's problems. I found these words very, very touching. That's every expression really. And something that was a bit new to me was this expression, revolution in values. You and I, knowingly or unknowingly, are guided by certain values in all our day-to-day interactions. Many a time unknowingly, I should say. A lot of our bias against some gender, bias against some community maybe, all of it reflects the value system that we have been carrying. Many a time we neither are aware of our false values nor are we ready to change. We spring into justification of our opinions, of our positions. Therefore, self-knowledge involves noticing the positions we take in various interactions with gentle, openness, without coming to some kind of conclusion. I think he is so and so, and I'm sure of it. That is a conclusion. At least we must soften in that matter. In ourselves we may say, he seems to be this way, but I'm not sure. Let me double check. Appearances are deceptive. And even what he or she did yesterday or a few days ago is not enough criteria for coming to any conclusion. So can we not keep an open mind? So open mind is very essential for self-knowing and self-knowledge. Again, to make one or two passing references to certain traditional wisdom, over there sometimes it is said, self-knowing or self-inquiry is like peeling an onion. Go on removing the layers. Finally, you are left with nothing. Therefore, the ego is false. QED, we are done with the job. Unfortunately, with all due respect to traditional wisdom, of which I myself have been a teacher or kind of a speaker for 4 decades, really that kind of hurriedly going to the conclusion. The ego is an illusion. The onion, upon peeling, finally is left with nothing. That is how my identity is. If we hurriedly embrace such an analogy, such an illustration, it may give to us some passing pleasure. We believe that I now understood the heights of philosophy. Nothing. It might have added a little more to my ego, now that I know philosophy and so on. Therefore, once more, with a tremendous amount of openness, with non-judgmental quality in it, we must go on questioning ourselves, our thoughts, our emotions. About identity, it is more or less something everybody would agree with. Identity becomes the basis for divisions. Identity, that is a description of who she is, who I am, who he is, etc., is the basis for a lot of divisions. And the question is, as we said before, there seems to be some practical necessity for descriptions. You and I cannot meet and shake hands and completely avoid any self-introduction. There was a humorous play which I watched some time back, where 2 people meet, shake hands, and they are about to describe themselves, who they are. Both of them have apparently studied some philosophy, then they stop. They say to each other, you know what, let us not introduce each other. That is when troubles begin. Let us go around as strangers to each other. Let us remain strangers. There was both humor and a touch of wisdom in it. Moment we know each other, yes, the process of judging, process of pigeonholing begins. Therefore, let me try to dwell on how to deal with this identity. Somebody said to me, and there are lots of soothing statements in the world of philosophy, you know, it is okay to have identity, religious identity or national identity, but let it sit lightly in your consciousness. For a moment I felt the whole problem is solved. Yeah. Our identity, I am a lady, I am a South Indian, I am a Christian, etc. Let's say that identity, suppose it sits lightly in our consciousness. The person who said that to me even gave a very nice illustration. He said, think of a bird's feather coming flying in the air, and then it sits lightly on your shoulder or maybe right on your hand. That feather sitting upon your hand does no harm. In fact, you love it. And after a while, another breeze takes it away. Like that, our being Hindu or Muslim, Punjabi or Bengali, our being from some prestigious academic institution in our background, or from some unknown college in some small town, all that, how does it matter? Just ensure that it sits lightly in your consciousness. Soothing statement, but the big question is, how do we make it sit lightly? Generally, any self-description and description of others crystallizes, before we realize what is happening, into a judgment. In social get-togethers, we meet somebody, exchange visiting cards, they know someone is so and so, such and such. Immediately this clever mind, conditioned mind, programmed mind says, he is the person with whom I should now build a bridge. This is the best contact I got today, and so on. Another place, some cruel element in us also shows its ugly head. Somebody we come to know, these are the people who waste our time. I will keep them away, etc. Oops. There is so much wickedness, so much cruelty, so much manipulative or calculative ways in everybody's mind, the speaker not at all excluded, that it is rightly said that we are responsible for the wars in the world. We should not blame the Russian president or the Prime Minister of Israel. You and I should know that we have the same psyche in us also. And self-knowledge, self-knowing involves keeping an eye on that psyche, on that mentality, on that mindset. Selfishness in the simplest vocabulary, to use the simplest language, selfishness, being overly concerned about oneself, going way beyond the biological needs. Hunger and thirst, need for shelter, clean water, clean air. Not only that, certain amount of love and regard from a few people is basic, genuine biological need. But if we go way beyond it, I am not satisfied with 10 people saying I am marvelous or good. I want it to rise to 100, and hopefully in the whole world, I should be the person talked about with awe and admiration. That is how the self operates. So, in such a context, how do we deal with the little self, with the identity? Various religions from time immemorial have been quite dominant in this world. Time and again, in spite of unbelievable progress, not just in a general way in science and technology, but even in communication, today nothing prevents us from getting to know the good things about other religions other than whatever we might be belonging to. But in psychology, I believe there is an expression that is confirmation bias. You and I tend to read more and more of such material in printed form or on the internet or from somebody who comes to have tea with us, We want to gather such information more and more, which confirms that our religion is the best and all others are way down. And everybody does that. People belonging to every religion does that. Likewise with other divisions. Religion need not be the only thing on which we take our hammer and beat. Professional groups, linguistic groups, regional groups, and based on color of skin, everything. Color of eye, I guess. I believe in the United States there was a get-together of Indians, people from India, many years ago. This could happen even now. And one person with a soft drink in hand was going around and saying, well, we are from India, that's true. But you know what? I am a global citizen. I've been living in this country, meaning United States, for 25 years now. And though I joined you this evening, dear friends, I don't look at myself as an Indian. I am a global citizen, I am a US citizen. I first belong to the United States. I am an American, he said, I believe with certain, chest up and so on. But the other person said, yes, that's nice of you to say so. We appreciate your sentiment. But out in the world, are you sure everybody looks at you as an American? Don't be surprised if tomorrow a white man asks you, when did you come over to this country? That white man might have come 10 years before only, from Sweden or Italy, from some European country. And our friend has been there for 25 years, has made significant contributions to the professional field or any other way. But it is quite possible that the white man might ask the brown-skinned person, when did you come to this country? Looking at him as, an external person. So when the second guy said this, the first man was a bit shaken. It's not just how I perceive myself or how I think about myself, but how people look at me. Is there a way where everybody is helped to come out of their narrow angles of view? Now, in the good old literature, there have been wonderful poems, stanzas, verses, mantras, statements. Recently, in what was called G20, that was held in India, the slogan was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. When you split the Sandhi, it is Vasudha, the earth, Eva itself is our family. The whole world is one family. All of us belong to the one family called the earth. Well said. All the scripture, since I am a Swami, maybe it would be not out of place if I quote one or two Sanskrit shlokas or lines. In the Gita, Sri Krishna calls that person the greatest yogi and gives a description. You might wonder, the greatest yogi might be the one who walks on water. Maybe the greatest yogi is one who could live without food for 6 months, or one who can read your mind. No. That particular shloka says, whoever takes others' joys and sorrows as his own or her own is the greatest yogi. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sa yogi paramo mata. Beautifully said. We should take anybody's sorrow and joy as our own. Then we become yogis, not by being able to stand upside down for a long time, etc. They may have a place of their own. They are good exercises in a certain sense. But the height of yoga is the expansion of consciousness to include one and all as one soul. Or their sorrow is my sorrow is theirs. In the last century, along with Krishnaji, a couple of figures were sometimes grouped. In fact, there were people who used to go to all these three. They would come to J. Krishnamurti, they would go to Nisargadatta in Mumbai, and they would go to Ramana Maharshi in the south. To quickly mention one line from Ramana Maharshi. In one chapter in Ramana Gita, the question is asked, what is the healthy value for the whole world? Whole world, you have some advice. And he gives a line, maybe he had said it in Tamil, but the version I read is in Sanskrit. Saubhratrena samabhavena gantavyam padamuchyate. The one goal to which all humanity should proceed, the one goal all humanity should seek to reach is Saubhratra. All of you know the word bhrata, brother. Saubhratra is when all look at each other as brothers and sisters. Universal brotherhood, irrespective of the color of the skin or any other thing, that goes without saying. Saubhratram samabhavena, equally. That is the gantavya, that is the goal, that should be the goal, work towards it, Maharshi Ramana says. In this way, you and I keep a certain picture, that's how I should be. But the truth is, or the actuality is, I am not. In fact, we are so carried away by our sense of belonging. Let's say I belong to a certain organization, political organization, religious organization. There are many other organizations. If I belong to a certain organization where such things are taught, universal brotherhood, then I meet you somewhere and I say, no, you must become a member of this organization where I am. You know, it is such a nice thing. We are every day taught high values. For some reason, suppose you don't agree with me, then I don't like it. Then I may even, if I am foolish enough, I may even openly say, I won't look at you as my brother unless you join my organization. So the organization which perhaps in everyday morning prayer talk about universal brotherhood finds it very hard to look at others as their brothers unless they join their organization. Where does this come in? Why put such conditions? Why put such boundaries? Why don't you look at everyone as your brother and sister or belonging to one family without putting conditions of you should speak my language, you should dress like I do, a long list of things. Therefore, let me summarize what I have said so far. There is many a slip between the cup and the lip, as the saying goes. We may adore some ideals. We may fall in love with some concepts. We may greatly appreciate the way something is described. And Krishna Ji has touched upon all this in such clear ways. The description is not the described, he says. But you and I again and again fall for another description. A beautiful paragraph written especially in my mother tongue, and I want all to know that and so on. Be careful. Don't fall for the description. Be aware of the wide gap between the description that you admire and what you actually are in your day-to-day transactions. Leave alone transactions with others. Another domain of tremendous importance is your private hours, your quiet time. Therefore, it is so much in place that in a retreat like this, you and I should find some quiet time too. All the time we should not be talking to each other. A little of that is fine, but we should have quiet time. We should have silence. Because it's not just in interactions with people, but in the privacy of my existence. When nobody is around, I have shut the door and I am alone. My mind doesn't stay quiet. It goes on and on. It judges X, it judges Y, it takes some decisions to act in a certain way with regard to somebody, to act in certain other way about somebody else. So the whole drama keeps unfolding even when I am by myself. Therefore, observing how thoughts are evolving and inquiring and observing are to me the same, two sides of the same coin. Interestingly, many years ago, I thought someone like Maharshi Ramana advises self-inquiry, who am I? It's a question. And I was quite new to Krishnaji's teachings those days. And it seemed to me that Krishnaji lays stress on self-observation. Watch. And Ramana, ask yourself, who am I? Nan yaar, main kaun hu? So I thought these are two streams. But as a greater understanding developed in me about both these, because words do not convey everything. The word self-observation doesn't convey all that is involved in it to us at one go. When you grapple with self-observation and some advanced themes like the observer and the observed and whether they are one or whether they are separate, even now I'm grappling with that. That's one of the hardest issues for me. Observer, the observed, and their relation. So you understand observation, in a greater expanse of its significance. Then you also cross milestones in understanding the so-called self-inquiry, who am I? Then you find that the differences become less and less. To be aware and to question a particular thought, a particular feeling, go together, they are one, it seems. All right, in this self-inquiry, the identity of ours can change. To an extent, it can change. And to an extent, it may remain. I am an Indian, I remain an Indian till the last breath of my life. And I may, at places where it is appropriate or where it is required, may even say, I am an Indian, nice to meet you. And I shake hands with somebody from Pakistan, somebody from Italy. You're Italian, oh nice to know, I'm an Indian, nice, like that. I may continue to say, but how I perceive being Indian and the other guy being Italian or a Pakistani or a Jambian, how I perceive what sentiments, what emotions rise in me can undergo a sea change. Right? But how is that to happen? By simply repeating the statement, Italians and Indians, Americans and Australians are one only, and you sing a song, that won't take you far. It can give you some pleasure of singing, the pleasure of music, pleasure of nice lyrics, and so on. You and I, almost everybody here must be knowing that beautiful song we sing during Independence Day or Republic Day, etc. What is that? Sare, Jahan, Se, Acha, and so on. There it is said, one of the lines that I always loved with my limited knowledge of Urdu is Mazhab nahi sikhata, aapas mein bair rakhna, like that. Don't ask me more lines. Our dharma, whichever dharma we belong to, never tells us to hate each other, is the meaning of that line. Mazhab aapas mein bair rakhna nahi sikhata. So, you and I have enjoyed it. Sometimes some of us may have had tears in our eyes while listening to such beautiful lines from poetry in various languages. We have grown up with them. But transformation in the psyche is a different ballgame. Is a different challenge altogether. That is where self-inquiry comes in. We gave an illustration before, peeling the layers of the onion. That's okay, that illustration is wonderful. But what is the actual process? The actual process, in a manner of saying, is being directly aware of prejudice, of bias, of erroneous evaluation, or hasty conclusions and so on. In that being aware, the falsity or the questionable dimension of an idea we have been holding is exposed. Somebody picked up a coin and saw that it was a silver coin, quite heavy, and thought that this is a good day for me, I am lucky, this is very precious. I will go to the nearest jeweler and ask how much it can fetch. He was very happy, in fact he didn't want to show it to anybody, holding tightly in his fist. Then came a friend and said, what are you holding in your hand? Oh, it's okay. He put the hand behind also. The friend insisted, being a bit close. He said, no, show me what it is. With hesitation, this fellow opened the fist and said, you know what, I just found this on the way and I'm going to get some good money from this. Then the friend said, I recognize this kind of coins very well. That is not silver at all. That is fake. Somebody has thrown it by the roadside and you foolishly picked it up. I can come with you to the jewelers, etc. Now, bear with me for this illustration. I must confess, I must admit, that illustrations and stories and parables and a piece of poetry and some music, etc., can be very deceptive in making you feel you understood it. Somebody once said, you go to a satsang in a Ramakrishna mission or you go to a program of Krishnamurti. The difference is this. I asked, what is the difference? You go to a Ramakrishna mission satsang where the Swami will sing a bhajan and then speak something, sprinkle some Sanskrit, and his dress and the japamala, and all of them will make an impact on you if you are of a certain background, Your parents, your grandparents went. So after the whole satsang where stories were told, jokes were cracked, etc., you come home saying, today I understood Vedanta so well. In a Krishnamurti program, that's what he said, that's not my opinion, but he said, in a Krishnamurti thing, you go with a few questions, you attend, you think about everything, and come back with the, I have a long way to go, I have not understood you.
There is self in gross way sometimes, there is self in subtle way sometimes. So there is self. So that whether it's an illusion or not, but it is fact for me. So can we together find out whether self is illusion or fact? Thank you.
Correct. So to quickly correct what you stated, in my lecture I say certain traditional wisdom gives a few lines of analysis and says the self is an illusion. And it doesn't help us, I said. We respect. Some traditional teacher, some mystic says, if you inquire, you will find the self is an illusion. You and I read it and I said we will draw some inspiration from it. But in our life, what you say is 100% true. For us, the self is the solid reality. If somebody insults me, I come home with certain agitations. That is the solid reality. I may be carrying a book on, the ultimate truth is pure awareness, everything else is false. It may be. But the reality for me is the hurt, is the anguish, right? So you are right. I didn't say the self is an illusion, is my view or my discovery. As a traditional wisdom talks about it. Ramana Maharshi, Upadesha Sara says, if you inquire what the self is, you will find that there is no self. Using the word manasa, he says, manasam tu kim margane krite, naiva manasam. If you inquire who this I is, you will discover that there is no I. He says it. And you and I take a deep breath. Oh, really? So for us, you are perfectly right. Self is a solid reality. Mike is working.
Hello,
Sir,
sir.
I want to talk.
Yeah.
Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
Sir, in this world of toxication, digital toxication, I was wanting to tell you about the incident that happened in my house. My grandchild, just 2 years old, we were asking her to recite some nursery rhymes. She got so vexed, she said, "Hey Google Ho, please sing." "Hey Google Ho, please sing Jack and Jill." I was stunned. A girl of a 2-year-old, I mean, you want her to learn something, poem or something at that age. She said, "Hey Google Ho, please sing Jack and Jill song." No, so I was totally, I don't know how to react to that. See, this type of digital toxication is happening also to elders. I am seeing my friends, even when they are sleeping, the mobile phone will be near to them. At any time of the day, they want to listen to this, whatever the message that comes. So this thing of how do one look at oneself, one observe when one is totally drawn into various minds of digital knowledge. So once you come out of it, only you can look into self-awareness, to self-inquiry, which is not happening. How do we do that?
Yeah. You have already come halfway. You have found how troublesome that is to be caught, to be hijacked by technology, right? So stay with that awareness, stay more with that recognition that this gadget, this Google, this technology is taking us away from being normal, natural living beings. We are becoming more and more machines. So you have a certain awareness of that. Don't stop there. You be with that with greater intensity until it collapses. That attachment to technology should wane off, decrease and go away. Any falsehood, if you stay with it with the awareness, has to vanish. If you sort of half recognize it, this seems to be fake. Like the silver coin example, if the man is not convinced, he says, "This man said it is fake, who knows, I will ask somebody else." Then he won't drop it. Better he complete the inquiry, go to a jeweler, and the proper jeweler says, "This is not even worth 5 rupees." Then he throws it away, right? So you and I have to stay with a certain quest. All of us get every day really some questions about our ways. You and I have somehow accommodated certain artificialities, certain fake ways of living, because of influence, whatever. So if we really question that, then it can't stay long, it has to vanish.
Morning, Swamiji. Towards your left, sir.
Oh,
And I was listening to your journey about, in response to a question is, how did you become a teacher? And in your own inimitable ways, you talked about how teaching happened to you. So the question arises is, as an educator, and who's probably responsible of educating very young minds. In that context, what is the role of, we do speak of intrinsic motivation to children as educators and to be passionate about the subject. But the question is, in the light of what happened to you in your own, what you witnessed in your own life, how does one relate authentically to students with their own, probably today, tomorrow a child might come in with his own, maybe out of sheer laziness or lack of passion, he says, "I'm not interested in studying," or things happen. Is an important question. And also, what is the role of free will? Is there something called free will in this context? So one is probably of an everyday nature, the life of an educator. The other is a more
personal question. From your Vedantic studies, what is there something called free will? Is there something that we will our ways to do things, or things happen to us? And that's about it. Thank you.
So, if I gathered it right, there are two aspects to your question, or there were two questions. One is how do we relate authentically with the children? In short, we here at KFI have even brought out educating the educator. There's a small booklet. A lot of wonderful stuff is said there. We are not like enlightened masters teaching the children. We are also on the journey. They are also on their journey. And in some particular context, a child might know better than we do also in some cases. So keeping all that in mind, it is continuously working on our own life. The teacher has to work on her own or his own life to become less and less contradictory. We should detect our contradictions, to detect our conflicts. If we say something but do something else, we have to be a bit serious about it. Why am I saying this and doing that? So we work on ourselves, number one. And number two, in our communication with the students, both verbal and non-verbal. Sometimes we just sit with a couple of students, watching a play or something. That is also communication. They once in a while look at us, what we are doing. We also look at them. So in that sense, both in verbal and non-verbal context, what we communicate to our children also will have to be better thought of. We keep learning lessons. In one sense, if we live an orderly life, automatically it will improve the communication that we send across. But that may be taking too much for granted. We need to identify sometimes some mistakes that we may be doing. Like in my teacher's career, long back, I scolded one boy in a class in front of all. And that boy made a face, and the anger on his face, I could see. Later I learned, and some elderly person advised me, you reprimanded him for something wrong he was doing, that's fine. But you had an option. You could have called Raju, meet me after the class in the staff room. And you could have said to him in the staff room without other students being there. That has been a lesson with me. As far as possible, I do that. If I have to scold somebody, I say, see me later. I avoid the embarrassment to him or her in front of all. Like that, there may be a number of such simple things. They are also helpful. So if our communication with students gives them more space, it doesn't humiliate them or it doesn't embarrass them in some undesirable way, then they will become better. But more important is our working on ourselves in day-to-day life. Coming to the second part, this free will and is everything sort of programmed. Between you and me, personally, I believe in that higher standpoint that there is hardly any free will. Recently, I can forward that to you. Was it a Stanford research? One Stanford researcher has produced an article, still with me in my mobile. There is no free will. That's what Indian sages had said. But with all due respect to that theory of, there is no free will, whether God